What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are going to be breaking down a 20 Magisters Terrace. This was done last week. I will leave all my talent builds, route information, and I guess group composition stuff down below, so feel free to check it out. But we're going to just dive right into this one. Magisters Terrace is definitely one of the easier keys, so I'm going to just talk about what I'm doing, how we're pulling things, everything that went right, wrong. Actually, this was a pretty clean run. I can't really imagine too many things went wrong. But starting off, we are going to be heading into this first area. We are going to be tagging these Magisters and making sure we get an interrupt on them. I need to be careful I don't rip threat. I drop a ring of peace to prevent the mobs from getting stuck in the statue, and then I send a Cheebers through the wall to actually grab some of the early enforcers. Now, this is a trick that a handful of classes can do. I know Unholy DKs can do it from what I've heard, but Brewmasters primarily will use Cheebers to do so. So I guess the start of this pull actually didn't end up going super clean since someone lost threat, but pulling through the wall makes this first pull super worthwhile with Lust. So I am playing the Master of Harmony build in this run. That build will also be linked down below, like I said already. It primarily focuses on the 4-sequence rotation, which is Kick Smash and a Breath of Fire, followed by Blackout Kick and a Tiger Palm, and you pretty much stick to that rotation. Your Ox and your Fortifying Brew are utilized for just defense, and whenever you do need a Keg Smash reset, you just hit Celestial Infusion, and this also provides you a damage benefit because of your Coalesced Vitality. So if you stick to your 4-sequence rotation, hit Celestial Infusion on cooldown, you're going to do insane damage. And I've heard so many of you guys already giving me feedback on this build and just saying that it's like has drastically improved your damage parses and your just ability to time keys. So I'm glad it's working for a lot of people. So yeah, that's how it works. So in this pull, what we've done is we've just kicked the Magisters, lined them around the corner, and we're just stacking this pull up. Now, the first half of this dungeon, our pulls are going to be actually pretty calm, pretty chill. There's not much to do. The priorities here are the Magisters. Once the Magisters go down, you can always run with this pack. Unfortunately, we didn't really prio this one Magister. So if we kill them a little bit quicker, we'll be able to actually head into our next pull. So I'm now going to be heading down, making sure I'm not getting stunned, and triggering the book, and I'm going to be pulling the Pyromancer back to me. Now, what we're doing here is this is a cooldown recovery pull. Not that the next pull is going to be dangerous, but the next pull is going to have a very tight DPS check for us to make sure that there's no crazy overlap. So just a single Pyromancer is pretty chill. I bait the Flame Strike up against the wall, and then this spot that I'm standing right here, no patrols will ever walk over this spot, so you should generally be safe. And then once the next Flame Strike eventually comes out, we're going to just head back up against the wall where we dropped the first Flame Strike. Our healer doesn't have to commit too many cooldowns here. He's just going to keep us all inside his Healing Rain and Downpour. We're running a melee comp, which is relatively tanky, actually. Feral, DK, and Warrior are also pretty solid. I think the only weak I guess like melee comps or fizz comps would be like Serve Hunter and Rogue, but Serve is even pretty tanky. I would say like Rogue is probably the weakest of the fizz DPS. So we are now, we dispatched that Pyromancer, and now we are heading to the next area. We're going to be trying to skip most of the stuff in here. We're going to be hugging this left-hand side and squeezing our way into this room with the sentry, making sure we're not pulling that pack of 4. And then I'm going to be actually pulling this left side Pyromancer with the worms. So the reason why this pull is dangerous and a type DPS check is because there's going to be an overlap with worms dying, the ignition going on, and the knockback. So we want to try to avoid as much of those as possible. So the worms are going to go down before the knockback. The knockback now comes out, the crowd dispersal, and now the next DPS check is to kill the Pyromancer before the next ignition. So the next ignition will overlap on the crowd dispersal, which can one-shot someone. So you have to be super careful. We generally will save most of our defenses for it, but our damage dealers know that this Pyromancer needs to die before that crowd dispersal. And luckily, we actually destroyed the DPS check here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm now going to pull in the worms right before the crowd dispersal. So now we have plenty of time to kill the worms after the fact, before the fourth and final, or third, I guess, crowd dispersal. So here comes the Ethereal Chakra on me. I'm just going to Tiger's Lust it if I need to, but our healer actually dispels me beforehand, so I didn't need to commit that CD. The Arcane Energy Beam that he does on a player can be melted off once the beam starts, so you just run out of melee. Right when the beam starts, you melt, and then you can come back in. And then this is the final crowd dispersal. We link, but it doesn't even matter. So this pull is super sleeper, and these mobs are illegal to pull in high keys. And what I'm talking about are these familiars, these little like arcane elementals. They one-shot. Did you see that burst damage there? That's just from one of these arcane familiars porting. Now, the other side has 2. So, the issue in higher keys is that you wanna minimize pulling these arcane elementals or arcane familiars as much as humanly possible. Unless you have a crazy tanky group and someone is, like, manually keeping track of their port. Once that ad goes down, I'm technically good to pull into the boss. I was gonna wait till the next ignition, because if you pull right when the ignition cast starts, it actually has, like, a really good spell lineup, so you never actually have overlapping mechanics, but we are gonna get the Pyroblast here on the knockback. Pulling at this cadence is fine too, but I think the ignition comes out on the group knock, so you just need to be a little bit careful here. So here's ignition, we have to be just a little healthy, we pop AMZ, and now we should be pretty good. Roots are gonna come out. Axon can remove them. I believe Carrot could also remove them, maybe? Or no, just Axton. And so I'm gonna be Tiger's Lusting whoever cannot remove it off of themselves. Chicken's gonna be able to dispel one of them, and he is a dwarf, so he's always able to dispel himself. Here comes the next knockback, and now I'm taunting him over to the door to make sure that we minimize the amount of orbs that spawn. So for some reason, this location forces only 4 total orbs to spawn, 2 on his left and right side directly. So you can have 1 DPS and 1 tank just stand pretty much where I'm standing and just soak the orbs. And then 1, of course, on the other side, we have Zuzu doing that, using AMS to soak that. So this boss becomes essentially just a target dummy at this point. I don't know if they'll ever fix it. I've talked about this. I've reported on beta. They have just done nothing about it. So this fight just becomes objectively easier when you do this strategy. So now what we're going to be doing is we're walking him all the way back. I'm trying to use the stairs to prevent the knockback there. And now we're going to just kind of load up this area with all these like arcane residue pools that are on the ground. And now at this point, it's pretty much just a rinse and repeats. There is a strategy for funnel classes, specifically like Assassination Rogue or maybe Frost Mage, to you can tank the boss up against the wall where the next mobs are, like the worms, I guess, if I'm explaining that correctly. And people can hit them through the wall, but it actually doesn't pull them. And so what that does is it allows you to just like have free funnel. Anyways, here's that final arcane explosion. And then I'm going to get knocked once again to the door. I'm going to provoke to make him speed run over to me. And then we're going to get into position once again for the next set of arcane orbs during this refueling protocol. One thing I forgot to mention is a little bit earlier in the fight, there was a crystal where that last trash pack was. Generally, one of our DPS will pick it up during one of the burn phases if it lines up with their CDs. Generally, that's been Carrot. He's pretty aggressive about picking that stuff up because he likes to do big damage, as you can tell. I believe I'm actually tracking overall right now. I think I remember during this key, I was like, wow, dude, I'm pumping on this fight. And then I realized like later I was tracking overall damage. So it looks like I'm doing a lot right now, but that is currently, I think, my overall. So here we go, Arcane Explosion once again, knocks us back, and now we should only get 1 more burn phase. So that's kind of the goal here. You're going to do 3 full cycles. Healers in CC, I deploy that Tiger's Lust to remove it from him. Very powerful kind of utility kit that the, Monk has access to this season. And I transcend that big tank buster knock, and now we're getting in position to for this Arcane Explosion. So here it comes. I jump because the like curb of this path, you can sometimes get clip on it and then it doesn't knock you back. And then if you try to provoke and he like gets into melee range, he'll start this channel, which can be catastrophic because then you'll see like 20 orbs instead of just the 4. So we like to keep this free, this fight as free as possible. So this final protocol should get him like sub 5%, and then, or I guess sub 6%. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just like slowly walk him to the next area. We know that we're no longer going to get an arcane like residue pool from the slam there, the group AoE, and now we're heading out. All right, so grabbing 2 enforcers and pulling them back. Your group does not have to wait. They can start hitting immediately. I'm going to then grab the worms. You can see I'm kind of being very, I'm definitely not trying to pull everything. So what's happened before is my keg smash like pulled through the wall and then ended up pulling the arcane sentry, which ended up wiping us in a 20 or 2. So I'm very cautious when I pull that pack of worms. I actually just noticed that I missed 2 of them, which is very weird. Luckily, we weren't short count at the end of the dungeon. I think we had like almost exactly 100%. And then I'm going to send a chi burst into the next set of worms. So first set of worms come in, we kill them, and then the second set of worms will be killed using the first buff from the first set of worms, which will also help our healer keep us alive through that set. So what we're doing is we're just extending these worm sets on this Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker goes down actually before the enforcers, which is kind of insane. And now we're heading into the next area. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be deploying a quick little spear hand strike to the Magister to get a kick, moving them to the base of the stairs, and this is going to put me in a position to get the next pack set up as well. So I'm going to roll ahead, paralysis, and then of course the like the tapestries and stuff hanging around this room got in my way, but I was able to then just to single provoke over the Spellbreaker, which had the familiar coming with it. But you're going to notice here, this is actually a really, really scary pull whenever this familiar like blinks onto our party. We need to make sure that everyone is topped pretty much at all times. So healers are going to end up expending a lot of mana in this hallway. It's just a very intense healer hallway. If you can ever skip anything in here, definitely worthwhile. Except the issue is that a lot of the stuff in here has a spectral sight. So you can't like just invis pot or shroud or mass invis. I'd imagine you have to get pretty creative. I know a World 22 has been done. I don't know if they ended up skipping this hallway or not, but those familiars are near lethal. Anyways, once the first Magister goes down, that's when I chain into the second Magister. I back up just a little bit to make sure these mobs come in. I accidentally paralysis there, and now we are going to make sure that we're getting threat. So we are waiting until this Spellbreaker dies. It's about 10% health, 15% health. Once Skull dies, we are going to be ready to go into the next pack with Lust. And now ideally we have some of our cooldowns up. It looks like we don't have Berserk or Avatar for about 30 seconds. So this Lust isn't going to be like the most efficient with cooldowns, but we are going to be able to actually dispatch one of these Spellbreakers pretty quickly. So we're slowly kicking the Magister over. We also need to make sure that we're getting purges. Unfortunately, we only have one purge in our group, and that's from our Shaman. And obviously, like I just said, healers are going to be really kind of stretched here. So it's hard for him to get a purge all the time. It only matters on the priority target. So Link gets committed on the Lust. Avatar gets popped. Berserk just came up. Barkskin was committed. My Nizao just faded, but I'm not playing Shado-pan, so my damage is going to be relatively static pretty much the whole time. Unfortunately, Carrot got the bleed there. Now it's on Accident Chicken. Chicken commits Astral Shift. I'm baiting these frontals kind of away towards the boss, so my melee don't really have to think as much. The skull marked target goes down, and now we are on the final Spellbreaker here. So unfortunately, this last pack is the contingency on getting the boss to spawn, so we do have to kill this. But now that there's just one Spellbreaker left, our healer should be pretty okay to keep us alive and healthy here. Now, obviously, we're taking a lot. We've expended all our cooldowns. Our Lust went, but we are absolutely vibing. There's also a crystal right there that I just pinged. I didn't know someone grabbed it, but our warrior Kara did to get that pulled down. It's not really worth holding it for boss. This boss isn't that dangerous. As long as your healer is purging, or I should say anyone who has a purge is dispelling Sunlash with his arcane, I don't remember what it's called. He basically buffs himself and he does additional arcane damage on auto attack. If you have someone purging that, your tank's going to be super healthy. Your group's going to be super healthy. Tanks always hold this set and go last. That doesn't mean hold it forever. What it means is just wait for your DPS or your healer to drop first. So that's what I did there. You can hold on to it a little bit longer to get some stagger, but it just makes it uncomfortable for your melee DPS, especially if you're kind of just like someone who likes to strafe a lot. And so you definitely want to be careful. Healer drops there. Chicken was able to do that. And then I'm going to wait a bit. We're healthy. And then I drop. So nothing too crazy. I'm also going to try to keep him up against the edge of this circle because I want my melee to be able to just dip in and dip out as quick as possible without losing uptime. So I've seen some tanks like pull him to the far side of the room. That's just like not efficient. So you can do it based on like your comp. Like obviously with 4 melee, it might be better if I gave us a little bit more room just so melee aren't as uncomfortable when that shield comes out. But basically the general rule of thumb is if it does go on double melee, one person stays on like the left side of him, the other person stays on the right, and then everyone else can just kind of hang out in the middle while still hitting the boss. I believe that was an AMS immune there, and that's why only one person had it. So it was just Carrot, so nothing super crazy. You don't have to like pre-AMS. You don't have to like use Vanish and stuff. It is a nice thing, but again, this fight is like pretty relaxed, which is kind of nice after an intense amount of trash that we just like had to deal with. It's really funny on this fight too. So this add-on that I'm using that says healer in CC, it's called Mini CC. It's an add-on. It used to, I believe it was mostly like a PvP add-on, but it's expanded into, or maybe it hasn't. It's expanded into PvE. And so I use it for tracking some defensive cooldowns, a handful of offensive cooldowns, and of course, tracking if my healer's in crowd control. This doesn't matter in most cases. It's just funny on this fight that when he moves into that circle, because he's silenced, it's saying that he's in CC. So I just know that my healer is incapable of doing anything to me right now. This is mostly relevant, I would say, in like, I don't know, Myasara Caverns if they get targeted with like the charge on the first boss, or in like Pit of Sauron if they get targeted by the gargoyles. That's a really good time for me to realize like, oh, okay, my healer's AFK, or not AFK, but can't do anything, or needs me to help them get out of something, which is like why Tiger Sauce is really good. Anyway, Sunlash is going to go down here in a short bit. Again, my rotation is pretty much just Keg, Breath, Blackout, Tiger. And I repeat that until I am out of Keg Smashes, and then once I'm out of Keg Smashes, I hit Celestial Infusion. And that resets my rotation. And that's it. So I'm not running Exploding Keg, which is super nice. We're running a point in Anvil and Save, which is giving us a little bit of extra brew reduction on our Celestial Infusion and our Purifying Brew. And so what that means is that we can purify a little bit more often to fish for kegs. But the most important thing is that we're getting additional cooldown reduction on Celestial Brew, or Celestial Infusion in this case, which means that we can get more Harmonic Surge procs, which means we get more single target and AoE damage by Tiger Palming. And so there's like this really, really nice feedback loop, and it makes this playstyle extremely passive. When it comes to Chi Burst, hit it on cooldown. If you can't hit it on cooldown, hit it as close on cooldown as you possibly can. But in like single target, it's not going to make that big of a difference. In AoE, definitely worth hitting, but it's not like the end of the world if you miss a couple of casts throughout the key. Anyways, I'm pulling these Voidlings back. Unfortunately, we had a little bit like the guy started kind of resetting, then rerunning forward. So a little bit of a time loss here, but it's like I don't know what Blizzard can do besides just like having them spawn in earlier. Yeah, so I don't know. Anyways, we're just kind of walking with these guys up the hill. Nothing too crazy. And then we are going to actually end up pulling this onto this Void Caller. So I'm going to pull the Void Caller back. The big thing that we're looking out for is the Void Walker is still active. It's this X marked ad. We just need to make sure we're getting kicks on his Shadow Bolt, especially during the AoE channel. So during the AoE channel, this is where you're going to want to make sure you have kicks locked down. And then I commit a leg sweep there. So I was about to say CCs are also a really good way to make sure this damage is not going to kill anyone. So we cap into the, or link into the cap, I guess, or cap into the link. And we are just making sure that we are staying super healthy. Now, this pull is lethal because you have a bunch of these like scrounger guys. I don't know what they're actually called, but these guys like leap. And if they leap onto someone at the same time the AoE is going off, at the same time a bolt goes out, someone's probably going to die. So making sure everything is locked down and not doing anything, especially with things like leg sweep and cap totem, is really, really, really powerful. Now, what's also nice about the composition that we're running is we're playing Arms Warrior. And Arms Warrior gives us access to a massive 50% healing reduction, a mortal strike, a mortal wound on all the targets that they're able to mortal strike. And so what that means is those guys don't heal for nothing. And so they actually, it saves us a ton of time in this dungeon. We only end up pulling 2 of them because they're pretty lethal, but it's just like, it's an absolute game changer. And you can totally notice when you're playing with a class that has a nice fat mortal strike. I believe rogues and hunters can provide that. And I believe Havoc Demon Hunters, but I don't know if that's if they're playing Eldraki or not. So, and that might have been removed. That might be like old news. That was a thing back in the War Within. But playing with a warrior, playing with a rogue, 2 really good options. And I think if it's a hunter, it depends on their pet. Anyways, we are kind of just doing a chain here at this point. So I pulled in a couple of extra terrors, a couple of extra void walkers. And now that we just have 1 void walker up, we're actually going to be just kind of like hanging out in this corner, trying to line of sight this mob in. Shadow bolts should never kill anyone outright. And the only thing you have to do in this pull is make sure you're kicking these terror waves. Unfortunately, we did maim, Stormbolt, and Para there. That was kind of crazy. I marked it with orange just for someone to kick. And then we have that Void Walker just in the back because we're not LOSing, which is fine. It's kind of whatever. It's just casting back there, but we are going to want it to die at some point. But in this poll, I was watching Triangle, just to make sure that these terror waves are kicked. Again, it's 1 melee kick. I think a range kick can do it, but we have a full melee comp, so we have melee kicks out the wazoo. Oh, they're called shredders. There we go. All right, going into the Devouring Tyrant first and pulling them on top of these Void Walkers. Now, the key to this pull is really just locking down these Shadow Bolts, especially if they're targeting players who have the Healing Absorb. Now, I'm not talking about the Tank Absorb. There's a secondary Absorb that goes out on a random player. Now, this Absorb, while it's active, actually gives that player increased damage. Now, unfortunately, it gets healed pretty quickly, so no one actually really benefits from it, but it's a little fun fact. It gives you, like, I think it's 10% more damage or maybe 20%, but it mostly gets healed off really, really quickly. So the strategy for this mob in particular, for Brewmaster Monk, at least for me, is I generally like to start off with my Nizao, my Black Ox, my Loa, if you will, and I have them for the first Devouring Strike. The second Devouring Strike, I generally commit Fortifying Brew after it gets applied, so it guarantees me to apply my Apex talent to myself, which is a pretty sizable heal, and then I make sure that I have, like, an Expel Harmed bank. And then my last one, I'll generally commit Health Pot 2. So it's normally cooldown 1, cooldown 2, Health Pot 3. Now, I also play Dreadscale, and if I have Dreadscale available for that pull, I will fit a Dreadscale in there at some point, generally either with the Fortifying Brew or with the Health Potion. But the first one, your Ox plus just your AoE damage plus healer is fine. And honestly, a lot of times those shields get removed by your healers almost in its entirety. If a healer primes their heals accordingly, it should keep everyone nice and healthy. Anyways, first AoE comes out. We commit Link here to keep everyone nice and healthy. And as you can see, this mob is already at like 40% health. So we feel pretty healthy. I think we're going to have to heal through maybe one more. But again, it's barely healing, so we're not going to get a third one. And if we can skip that every time, that's going to be golden. And now you can see our timer splits down in the lower left-hand corner. We were actually a minute 30 faster compared to our last 20. Our last 20, we had about a minute or so left, so we were just cruising through this dungeon. Now, luckily, we were able to finish off the big void caller pretty quickly, and so we were able to spend time finishing off that last bit of trash. Now, this is definitely a boss that you can pull trash into. I've seen groups do that. We've done it. I've just decided, kind of like, it's not really worth the effort at this point. We are very comfortable on our timer. We are only going to get more itemable as well in future weeks. So this is definitely a key that I see my group doing on a 22, maybe even a 23 by the end of the season. Obviously, it might be too early to tell, but this is a key it's pretty comfortable. But there's definitely ways to get some trash onto this boss, whether it's trash from this room or trash previously in the dungeon that we just decided to skip. I think the coolest thing to do is, like, playing Rogue, shrouding through the Void Terror, like, hallway right before here, and then pulling that onto boss would probably be, like, the best solution, because then you just need to get 2 melee kicks. Anyways, we don't bug abuse on this boss. So I think in the 19 commentary that I had, or the 18 commentary, we actually ended up, like, forcing a death, which bugged out the boss and made them not do abilities. I don't know if that bug still exists. We play this fight normally. Our guys are really tanky. Our healer's really good. So we just play normally. The key to this fight as a tank is just, like, keeping Gemellis a little bit in front, because he has, like, a bigger hitbox, and that'll keep him pretty much pixel stacked on the ad underneath him. Now, later in the fight, there is some optimization in terms of, like, when you actually get the triplicate, but the pattern of these mobs totally depends on push timing. So it's really hard to actually get them stacked really, really nicely. And then I'm trying to, like, position myself so I'm not getting tracked through the poop, but I ended up taking a ton of ticks there. Bad tank. Get good. But I see that these mobs are now going to be kind of, like, rotating the same way. So now I'm able to sit in between these two and get a fair bit of cleave here, which is, like, super, super, super nice. Dropping the Cosmic Sting off. Now, the mobs always move at or I guess, like, the triplicated ads move at the same pace. And so your goal is to, like, follow the interior one when it's kind of approaching or encroaching on, like, an exterior ad. And I'm also seeing that this ad to my right is coming in, so we might be able to get a really, really good stack here in the future, and this is going to be a massive time save. Now, it's hard to plan for this because it all depends on your push timing for the triplicate cast, but if you can just, like, get lucky, I guess, or have good timing, you can get a ton of free, like, look at this stack right now. We're getting so much free damage from having them this, like, tightly stacked for a bit. And now that he's, like, sub 5%, the ads are kind of dispersing just based on, like, their kind of routes. So we're gonna try to remove this shield as quick as possible, and then hopefully land a touch of death. So there we go. And now this pull, we are just running up the stairs. Now, Master of Harmony is a little bit more difficult to get thread on this pull. I do commit a spin there because I didn't have any keg smash charges. It didn't even get me thread. I think our warrior still has threat, but he'll be fine. It's just a couple of voidlings hitting him. I'm going to run far enough where I'm getting even more voidlings, pulling them all back onto the void terror. So we're playing with triple shredder, double terror, and then a bunch of voidlings, and this pack will get blown up. And then after this, we have one more pull, and then we're going to be skipping to boss. This pull, pretty much once you kill Gemellis, I think these next two trash pulls are basically free. And if you're skipping the last trash pack, which is becoming, I think, increasingly popular in higher keys, there's just like the back half of this dungeon is so free. It's so weird. Like this is one of those dungeons where I think the boss fights get harder, but the trash only gets easier, which is just like really funny to me. Because normally it's like the trash generally like starts pretty easy. I feel like in most dungeons, and then the trash and the bosses might get harder, or maybe the bosses get easier. But yeah, this is just one of those dungeons that the deeper you get, the higher chance you have at succeeding until you get the Degentrius, and then you just wipe. I wanted to be a little careful here. I stopped actually moving up the ramp because I didn't want any kind of cleave to accidentally hit that void turret. Actually, that special delivery keg kind of freaked me out a little bit. And now we are heading out. So 93.33 is like, I believe it's like the perfect percent that you need. If you're 93.33 going up here, this pack should give us exactly 100 or just about 100. And then we're going to be doing a little skippy poo. Kind of same thing. This is just a repeat of the pack downstairs. It's triple Shedder, double Void Terror, and a couple of Voidlings, and we are just going to be blasting some damage. Now, we don't necessarily want to commit CDs, even though Axton did here. He committed that Berserk. We also have Avatar committed as well. This pack just gets obliterated too fast that it's not really worth popping cooldowns if you want to save it for boss. But as you can see, we are a minute faster on our Gemellis split, which is kind of insane, and we have no deaths. So we're going to be heading into this last boss with, I don't know, 8 minutes left. So we're looking really, really good. Now, unfortunately, I think this is the one thing that we mess up on. I think Axton misses the jump, so we have to wait for him for a little bit, but we could have had such a fast run. So basically, I put down 2 world markers. So I'm going to go to X. I'm going to dash and roll across. Our Shaman's going to Gust of Wind. Our DK is saving or using his Gust of Wind potion or Potion of Gust. And then Axton's going to be able to do a wild charge here. Now, again, we're losing a bit of time waiting for him, but I'm going to kind of show you what it looks like if you do the jump successfully. You kind of have to stand on X and like angle yourself pretty much like a little bit to the left to make sure you're like hitting the ramp when it's going up and you don't fly. I've seen people like fly over the ramp too. So I'm putting down a purple marker. Basically our entire squad is going to play on the purple side, and I'm going to solo on this side, the unmarked side. And the reason we do this is because it's going to help out our healer when it comes to healing Rain. It's going to make it easier for him to keep our melee alive, because that's really who he's healing right now. Shamans are crazy tanky, obviously like healers with leech, and they're going to like passively be healing themselves the most. So keeping our melee nice and healthy as they're kind of stacked on that side is a lot better. I don't need a ton of healing, but I will need a dispel. But what's nice is I'm going to be doing 2 of the soaks. So our melee are going to be taking less damage, or our group should be taking less damage. And it means that I can just be willy-nilly with my movement. So when the tank buster's coming out, I don't have to worry about like pixel, like moving around DPS and making sure that I'm in a safe location. I can just run wherever I want. I can get dispelled wherever I want, and I'm never going to really be in danger. Now, when it comes to cooldowns on this fight, I will always send Ox pretty much on cooldown just to benefit from the mastery. Again, we're not playing Shado-pan, so I don't have a ton of burst potential from it, but it is giving me stomp damage, and it's giving me a little bit of DR, and it's taking stagger, so it's kind of like a weird DR cooldown. And it's also just giving me a bonus mastery for my Heart of the Ox talent. But as you can see here, I'm going to just be kind of flying across the room, double soaking. I set it down to Transcendence earlier, so I knew that my Transcendence was there. But by me double soaking, just allows it so our melee and our DPS and our healers can just be like way safer. Also, the lines that are on you. This obviously doesn't apply to tanks, but they do not hit people inside of you. The orbs actually spawn around your character and like protrude outwards when debuff expires. So you can technically stack inside of each other and save space if you absolutely need to. So if you're playing with like 2 range, your melee could unironically pixel stack for the entire fight and never have to worry about anything. Now, when you're playing triple melee, there's a little bit of nuance here because someone has to go back and soak, and so it's a little bit harder to do. But yeah, you can basically pixel stack. But like once again, as you can see, I'm just running around like crazy. I send my cow, and we start blasting. This fight gets really boring and repetitive after a bit. It's pretty much just like a healer check, but if your healer can keep everyone up, This fight's, I don't know, it's pretty tame. Our melee are just like trying to be as still as possible. I know most melee DPS like to do their little stutter stepping, but if you can stand still as much as possible in this fight, it's only going to help everyone else out. So I'm going to roll back. My healer, we've been getting a cadence of like him dispelling me. He now knows like if I'm trying to soak a small orb, he's not going to dispel. And now he's kind of been waiting for me to like roll out. Me rolling out doesn't really matter. So if he does dispel me, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. The pool on the ground doesn't really affect tanks too much. Obviously, I don't want to be spending a lot of time in them, but I don't mind rolling across them. I don't mind getting dispelled. So he'll dispel me after the soak so I can move immediately, because if he dispels me beforehand, I have to sit in it for a little bit of time. Anyways, I'm now holding on to my fortifying brew. There's not really a reason for me to pop it until I'm in danger, which might be on the next tank buster. But the thing is, like, I'm never really in danger on this fight. It's just there's more of like an inconvenience factor of like tank buster, soaking, dispel into pool. So basically, Fortifying Brew will help mitigate damage, and it's going to apply a pretty nasty hot. And nasty hot as in like it's really potent. So you want to use it like right before you take damage so you can get the most out of the defensive. Like if you pop it too early, you're going to waste like half of the healing over time effect, healing into nothing if you haven't taken damage yet. And we're going to dodge this final orb. We're sitting in the pool. It does hurt a little bit. We get a dispel. I roll out of it, and we are now good to go. Touch of Death gets deployed, and we finish that key with 3 minutes and 19 seconds left. I believe at the time of running this was like US 23rd or 24th. It's definitely gone down a little bit. A lot of people are starting to time this on like 20 high, like fast 20s and high 21s. This is probably one of the easier keys of the season, I would say. I think it's pretty lenient on timer. The big check is like, do you have the healing capabilities to make it through the hallway before second boss? And if you could do that, it's just like GG. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video and this commentary, this breakdown. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.